What is up, world? It's your boy Tommy on the spot for Watch Along Wrestling. Hopefully everyone is doing well and staying safe. I am so glad to be back here with each and every one of you. It is an annual tradition like none other. Some are excited for Christmas, some are excited for Hanukkah, but for me, for the end of the year, I get most excited to hop on here on the Watch Along Wrestling YouTube channel with my main man, Steve, down in Orlando, Florida, to rank all of the WWE premium live events of the year. Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I am a teacher in the midst of his winter break, so I have absolutely no concept of time or what day it is. And it is a balmy 80 degrees down here in Florida, so I'm having a blast.
Oh my goodness. I'm excited to it is a freezing cold 20-something degrees over here in New York, so excited to get on down to Florida here soon enough. And all of my North American travels that I have coming up here next month. But that is awesome. How long is your break until?
We go back not this Monday, next Monday.
Oh, awesome. So you got a whole nother week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am on vacation until the 7th because I did not want to deal with the stress of having to get back and have like a loaded up Monday. So I took off that Monday just to kind of regroup and kind of, hang in there, do some stuff, get ready for Raw on Netflix, which it is looking like that is a premium live event quality show. That show's looking awesome, and I'm excited for that one. And then getting back to work on that Tuesday. But now my Tuesday is loaded with, everyone's jumping on there, making sure I don't have a minute to breathe on that Tuesday. But
yeah,
thankfully,
right,
it's a few weeks away, and excited for that. But something else I'm excited for is to get into all of these premium live events. Now, Steve, when you look back at the year that was 2024 in the world of WWE, what are some of the things that immediately come to your mind? Do you feel like it was a good year overall?
I think overall it was a great year. I think that there were a bunch of different things that stood out to me, that there were kind of threads that you could see were woven through the entire year. And some of them that are going to most likely keep going into 2025. So I'm excited to see how some of these storylines and how some of these kind of character arcs and whatnot play out in the next year. But overall, I think it was a great year for WWE.
I agree. Yeah, no, I think it was certainly I'd say one of my favorite years. I think 2023, when we got together last year to talk about it, was a good year. But I think they've even gone further than that when you include, certainly the inclusion of The Rock as the final boss toward the beginning of the year. Then kind of that incredible CM Punk and Drew McIntyre feud. And obviously Cody finishing his story. There's a lot of really fun things to kind of sink your teeth into throughout the year. The rise of the new bloodline, the return of the old bloodline. It was really a lot of fun to kind of think about.
So I mean, we can go into it and we can kind of talk through it as we kind of come up to these moments. I think is probably the best way to do it.
Sounds good. So we have 13 premium live events here. We do separate WrestleManias both days into two different events because of the fact that I do consider it two different events, especially if you're, I did not attend WrestleMania Live this year, but you sit down to watch each show separately. They're two different events. And I personally feel like if it were one event and you included both days, it would significantly hinder the show, similarly to those events, WrestleMania 33, 34, 35. Those events are all, remembered with kind of a bit of an ire because even though there was a lot of really good on those shows, the shows were just so long with, 12, 15 matches in some aspects. So I think certainly separating things out is a good thing and certainly something to look forward to. So let's go ahead and get started here. And let's look at what you thought, Steve, was your number 13, your worst of the year. Premium. Oh, and I guess before we get there, I should also mention, I know there are some people who do consider Saturday night's main event to be a premium live event. I did not include that as a premium live event. I feel like it's, I think you said it best. It's more of a TV special. With them now doing these quarterly, I don't consider them. I was at the Saturday night's main event. I did not consider it. I felt like a TV show much more than a premium live event.
Yes, and also since you were at the show and you did not watch it on TV, you didn't see all of the commercials. which typically do not happen during a PLE. You got the in-between stuff, but they did the same thing where it was the mid-match commercials and whatnot. So, and also the fact that it was on television and not, like we watched it on Peacock, but you could have watched it on NBC, which is not premium.
Very true. That's a good point. You're right. It's not a premium live event. It's not. I thought it was on only Peacock, but you're right. If it's on NBC, so I'm guessing that's why WWE is having these like randomly throughout the year. So like the next one I believe is going to be the week before the Rumble, which just feels like way weird to have it then. But I guess it's because it's mostly based on NBC's schedule than it is WWE's schedule as to when.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, makes sense. So yes, we did not include that. All right, so let's get into this here. Which event did you have as number 13?
Okay, so I don't want to say it's the worst, the least good.
Yeah, I like
I guess for all intents and purposes, for me was Crown Jewel.
Yeah, it was me. It was Crown Jewel as well. And it was one I just watched recently. And I think for me, and it was so funny because I remember being so excited that we finally went past 5 matches for a non-Big Four premium live event. Other than SummerSlam and WrestleMania, this is the only show throughout the whole year that had more than 5 matches, and I was very excited about that. But then during the show, I think one thing that really took me out of it was that you had these 2 matches going on for titles that really have no significance outside of the Crown Jewel event itself, the Crown Jewel Championships, if you will.
Yeah, and the fact that they're not. I think for a little while, Liv was touted as like the Crown Jewel champion for about a week or so until that kind of fell off.
Yeah,
and then I don't think they barely mentioned it. Excuse me. For Cody, so
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think for me it was a situation where I do think the triple threat on this show for the U.S. title is probably the best match on the show. I think it's Bronson Reed also fought Seth Rollins on this show, and that was a good match as well. But other than that, I mean, Gunther and Cody had a good match, but I never like doing the champion versus champion matches unless the guy who's clearly the lower champion gets the win. Like Cody beats Gunther. I don't think that does anything for Gunther, if that makes sense. Kind of like when they did Survivor Series 2021. I was at that show. They did Roman Reigns versus Big E, and I remember being so excited, like, if Big E gets this win, this will solidify him. And he lost. And I just think it just made the title look less than to have the champion go in there and lose against the other champion.
Yeah, those moments should be to advance some sort of storyline. And especially when you have it as 2 champions that have no interactions with one another, had no real previous storylines, and had nothing to do with one another, like, it didn't mean as much, and moving forward, it's not going to mean too much after it. Like, if Cody and Gunther had some sort of program afterwards, maybe you could see it. But then, with with Liv and, with that match, like, nothing else happened afterwards.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I thought it was really, I think that I think was a kind of a weirdish type show. I do also think sometimes these events in Saudi Arabia, they've certainly gotten a lot better, but I do think sometimes they exist in their own vacuum a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd love to go check out certain WWE experience they have down there. It looks incredible. And the crowd, what's great is at least that Triple H continues to present the normal WWE product to them in these premium live events. Back in the day, used to get your one-off appearances for Goldberg, Undertaker, those types of guys, because they felt like the crowd. Yokozuna, right? The Ultimate Warrior. So all the previously deceased wrestlers they were trying to come back. So it wasn't good. But with that being said, one of the things I really enjoyed about that, about this show, though, again, was the idea that at least finally they got some of the mid-card titles on the show. I would love to see those titles continue to be put on the show. I think it really adds importance to them to have the premium live event spotlight. That's probably my favorite part of this show, is that at least they got on the show with those titles.
Yeah.
All right, so number 12 on your list.
Number 12 on my list. Are we not going to go back and forth, or was that also your number 13?
That was my 13 as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually we'll go back and forth, but both
We were in agreement there. Okay. So for me, number 12, and this was one of the ones that I kind of like had to go back and forth on and think about, but realistically, I couldn't knock any of the other PLEs down to replace it. So for number 12, I'm going to go with one of the more recent ones, Survivor Series War Games.
Excellent. What was it about that show that you were a little hesitant on?
So I was looking at it and saying, okay, so the men's War Games match obviously had a lot going into it, had a lot building up to it, and it felt like it was like it, within the confines of the storyline and everything like that, and even outside of it, it was a great match. And it was a very good match in terms of storytelling. It was a very good match in terms of the spots and everything, the finish and everything like that. It, like, I don't know what it was though. Like, I maybe it's because it felt like it was going to be a foregone conclusion of the OG Bloodline winning. Because if the OG Bloodline doesn't win, I don't know what else happens.
Right. That's a good point.
Like, so maybe it was just because going into it, you knew who was going to win. But also having that triple threat, that was such a good match.
Oh, I know.
The triple threat for the Intercontinental, it felt like it couldn't, again, had maybe it gone differently, had maybe Sheamus gotten the upset, or maybe even Ludwig Kaiser getting the upset, and then you have Ludwig versus Sheamus going on, and something happening. But not much has happened since then.
Right.
And I didn't want to make it like a recency bias thing. So maybe in trying to prevent that, I kind of intentionally had to lower my ranking for this, because everything else on it was I love Shinsuke and I love that he won the belt, but the match itself was kind of meh.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think going back, and I'll talk about it. It's not much higher on my list, but I think going back to, you could tell LA Knight was going to lose because he came out looking pretty solemn. He usually comes out talking trash, all upset, super confident. You could tell he looked a little like, this sucks.
Well, in terms of storytelling, it was a little bit because the whole thing was he was all this time he's always been this kind of cocky, arrogant guy. He's had the showboatedness, he's had that charisma and everything like that. But Shinsuke was kind of throwing him off his game.
Yeah.
And I think that came through both in the kayfabe and in the behind the scenes part of him getting off his game, maybe because he knew he was going to lose, or maybe in kayfabe because he knew that he had a chance at losing something.
Oh, good call.
So in terms of the story, I liked it. I wish that there would have been more build up to it. And
I agree.
But aside from that, I think overall cool, okay, but it was all about what's going to come next after it. And there's both the nothing's happening and there's still so much more to be said.
Right.
So it was very uneven.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that, and I'll talk about my thoughts on it here in just a bit. But for me, my number 12 here, back in let's see, tell you the exact date it took place. I'm going back to August 31st, 2024, Berlin, Germany, Bash in Berlin.
Okay.
Great card. I will say that, again, kind of to your point here, I don't think any of these shows are bad. I think that, for me, I think Gunther and Randy Orton have a solid main event here. Did feel like it was a little slow getting into it. And the match almost goes 35 minutes. It feels like at 25 minutes would have probably been enough for it. Cody and Kevin Owens starting the show feels weird. I don't feel like Roman was never starting the show, he was always the main event. So it's kind of weird to have. I understand in this particular situation you wanted Gunther to be in the main event, but I think that having Cody start the show was weird. And I hated the idea, even though now it made a lot more sense. I assumed when I originally watched this match, we'd be one and done with Kevin Owens and Cody. And I like the story of Kevin Owens, torn. He felt like he could end Cody at any minute, but he didn't. He kept pulling back on it. And I really felt, in retrospect, now that we see this story continuing, I think it really would have been fun. It's kind of a cool starting point too. Kevin had Cody, and if he just blasted him with the chair, he would have won the match. But instead, he refused to do it. His heart got in the way, and so he ends up losing the match. But a solid match there. For me, I was probably looking one of the most forward to matches on the show. Terror Twins, Damian Priest and Rhea against Dirty Dom and Liv. Match itself just okay for me though. And I do think Punk and Drew, while their feud was great, I do think this was the weakest of their three matches. The strap match, just like kind of a weird deal there. So,
yeah,
again, it was good. We did get a women's tag team title change, which is always nice to get a title change. But at the end of the day, it's a little lower on my list probably than most people have it on theirs.
I will say I have a feeling potentially that it's probably swapped for me. I have a feeling where I put Bash in Berlin, you probably put Elimination or War Games, maybe.
Could be.
It's coming very soon.
Is it your next one?
It's not my next one.
Mm.
But I have a couple coming up. So my next one is going to be the Elimination Chamber.
Okay. And what was it about that one that you had it ranked over there?
This might be the again, like the oldness coming, kind of coming in where like I don't remember much about it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why I'm like, if I don't remember much about it, how good could it have been? But it's I feel like, and anytime there is a I don't want to call it a time filler, but like, any of those kind of segments where it's like the Grayson Waller effect kind of things. Like, I know he's trying to get on the show because he's Australian. It was an Australian, whatever. Yeah. But like, how good can the show be if we had to have that? Couldn't you have just had him have a match instead?
Right. Yeah, because he ends up doing like the take of he's like doing a shoey at the end of the show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's and it was kind of predictable, and you kind of knew what was going to happen for a few of them, and it's just it kind of I think also maybe because it's always usually like one of the last steps before Mania, they don't want to like shoot their shot.
Right.
They want to hold back all of those things, and this is kind of it's either the anticipatory thing to build up to something at Mania, or it's just a pit stop of we need to fill some time. We don't want to do anything. We don't want to show our hand just yet.
Right.
And I think sometimes they hold back a little bit too much on this, where Elimination Chamber could be one of the best shows. It just always kind of.
You're right. It's a good call.
Feels like they intentionally held back.
It's a bad spot for it. I agree. I think it should be built up and I know their plan. I believe I was reading the other day. Their plan is eventually to move Rumble to 2 nights, Money in the Bank to 2 nights, and then Elimination Chamber for 2 nights. And I think this year, when they bring Elimination Chamber to Skydome in Toronto, which is insane that they're going to run Toronto Skydome for Elimination Chamber. But I hope that means that they're going to be putting more of an emphasis on this show, because you're right. Mm-hmm. That should be the match that kind of blows off a big match. It should be, going every balls to the wall. You're right. And here it didn't really get there.
And so, I mean, maybe also because like we know it's seeing everything for what it turned out to be, and there were some great seeds that were planted here. There were, but in the moment, it's kind of one of those like where did some of the other stuff go? Right.
No, that's a good call. Number 11 for me, and I know this is when a lot of people love this show, but I have my reasons to why I was not as high on it, and they're probably personal reasons. But number 11, Clash at the Castle. A lot of people I know love this show. For me, the biggest things about this show are the fact that you had really good, so Bayley gets the title at WrestleMania. Amazing match, great moment for Bayley. I don't think her title reign needed to continue as long as it did, and I think they could have absolutely flipped the title and given Piper Niven a great moment in Scotland. And then the main event, which has an incredible twist, which CM Punk comes in as the ref, and they shoot it so well that you don't notice him as the ref. But being somebody who saw Drew McIntyre go into the first Clash at the Castle and have that opportunity to win the title, I was really pulling for Drew. The crowd forgot about Drew. Like, they loved him so much. I assumed, like, wow, they screwed him too many times. Like, people are going to be hating on Punk. They really weren't. People were all about Punk, even in his own hometown. But I was hoping for the win for Drew, and I hadn't been sold yet on Damian Priest as a top guy. So again, you have Cody as the starter of the show here. I understand why you have to because of Drew, but at the same time, I wasn't really sold on Priest. I'd get there, but I wasn't there yet. So that, to me, I think those are the main reasons. It's nice to see the Unholy Union get the big hometown win, but the Unholy Union, as I said to you last week, I'm just finding out that's even their team name. I thought that was The Undertaker and Big Show from back in the Attitude Era, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. But to me, that didn't make up for the other two losses. I will say on this show, though, great match between Sami Zayn and Chad Gable. They have one of the greater matches of their series of matches, kind of an underrated feud. And Cody versus AJ, I Quit match is a good match, but certainly not as good as their classic from Backlash. So that's why I have that here at number 11.
And I could see that. I could see a lot of that. I will say that I also have Clash a little bit higher.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hold off on my opinion yet. So,
all right. So getting into your top 10 now, what was your number 10?
My number 10 was one that was saved, in my opinion, by one single match. And that's going to be Bad Blood.
I knew it was going to be Bad Blood. I have it a little higher on my list. But yeah, I know a lot of people don't like that show too much. It's an incredible match, though, for sure.
I mean, if it wasn't for the CM Punk Drew McIntyre Hell in the Cell match, if for some reason that was on the show, something else replaced it, or if it just didn't live up to the hype, I see this being at the bottom. But that match is so good, in terms of everything, that it saves it from being any lower. Personally, the rest of it was either a rematch or it was just kind of meh. And again, I don't like it if it's gonna I understand that sometimes PLEs have those kind of non-match moments, but when it's completely out of the blue, complete non sequitur, and nothing else follows up, it kind of has the opposite intended effect, where it's supposed to be this wow, can you believe this person showed up kind of moment,
right?
But if nothing else happens for it, or if what happened wasn't meaningful, okay, to jump the gun, to move ahead at the end, when at the end of night 2 of WrestleMania, when the Undertaker shows up, crazy spot, could have been better.
Yeah.
It but we'll talk about that. But for this, when The Rock shows up at the end, why?
He does the throat slash, and then that's it. You don't see him for the next 6 months.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, maybe what we're still looking at what is to come, and maybe that will be a payoff somehow, some way. Goldberg showing up and having a little spot, absolutely meaningless.
Yeah, haven't done shit. You're right. They haven't done anything with that. It's a good call.
Is he gonna come back? Is what's gonna I don't know. I would love it if it's gonna wind up being Goldberg and Braun Breaker against Ludwig Kaiser and Gunther or something, But I don't see that being a payoff in any way.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's a good call.
But
I don't know what to do with Goldberg. Doubt they do anything. He's older at this point too.
Yeah, sold.
Yeah, he's got to be. I mean, I think he's got to be close to 60 at this point. So I'm I do not know. But that is a good call. Those are definitely some good points on that one. For me, my number 10 is going to be one you mentioned, Survivor Series War Games.
Okay.
I know a lot of people know that I'm not a huge War Games guy. I like the War Games matches. I do think they're very good. And actually, when I did my rankings of the more recent Survivor Series, numbers 2 and 1 were both War Game matches. But I do think that it just takes damn long to start.
Yes.
25 minutes before the damn match actually begins. Then they start they need to either incorporate eliminations in there or just do one War Games. There was no reason why. I feel like that women's War Games match would have been so much better if it was just a traditional Survivor Series match where you could have got to see some of the different women kind of interact with each other from Team Bianca and I guess it was Team Liv, was it? Yeah,
Yeah.
because then Rhea came back. Yeah. To your point, the triple threat, incredible on that show. Ludwig Kaiser, Sheamus, and Braun Breaker, really great match on the show. And I will say, the main event was very good. The problem also with this show is that you last year had the incredible ending there where you have Randy Orton show up, you have CM Punk show up. So at the end of this show, when all the baby faces win, and I'm begging them to give Solo Sikoa a dub at some point, my guy takes nothing but L's endlessly. He loses time and time again. I understand this time around, you couldn't have made him lose, but I do think you could have made it's like this would have made so much more sense going into this match if they gave. And I know people will think this is insane. I really think if I can go back and change one finish of any match at a PLE in 2024, I'd have Solo Sikoa defeat Cody Rhodes for the title at SummerSlam. I know he's not championship ready, but I think like if he beats Cody there, and then at the end of the show you have Roman return, he is such a threat now. Now the new bloodline is such a threat. Not only do they have the Ulafala, but now they have the world title. And now it makes sense why Roman needs to go back and get the Usos and go get Sami Zayn. Instead, Solo's lost every single match out. So at the end of the day, it's like, did they really find him such a big threat that they needed all these other guys? The inclusion of CM Punk certainly saved it. But again, I just think there was something missing there.
It also, okay. So I think that I will actually say that one of the things that I put on my moments list is when Heyman comes back with CM Punk in tow.
Good one.
Because it's who is this last guy gonna be?
Right.
They've run out most of the options, and I didn't want it to be Seth after everything. I didn't want it to be like any of these other guys.
Yeah.
And like you're starting to run out of who could this surprise be, and I also kind of didn't want it to be The Rock either.
Yeah.
So like who else could it be? But with all of the you talk about long-term storytelling of CM Punk being the original Heyman guy,
right,
and coming back and being listen, I'm doing this for Paul, I'm not doing it for you, and all of that stuff and the favor and whatnot and like all that stuff like that I see being a good payoff.
That was great. And I remember I was sitting there watching that SmackDown with Ari. She was joining me, and when Heyman came out, she looked at me and went, "Oh my God, they're bringing back Brock." And I was like, "What? Oh my gosh, you're probably right." And I wasn't sure I wanted Brock back. I was like, "I don't want Brock Lesnar in the middle of this bloodline story."
Absolutely not.
But then they hit Punk's music, and both of us were like, that is great. And I think that is probably the one thing. So like, I love that like at the end they're all kind of doing their poses together, and then Punk kind of looks at Heyman and goes, "Remember, you owe me one." So that's a cool little tie in there. So I had a good show. I'm not even talking myself into maybe moving this up now. Such a as we're talking through that, the main event though was really really well done, and I love the bit there where Punk saves Roman at like the last possible second before Bronson Reed destroys Roman Reigns. Instead, he destroys his own ankles, the poor guy. But that was a strong match and a good show. I do think that there's unrealistic expectations though because of the year prior and everything that happened there.
Yeah, and again, like there's more story to be told still. So we'll see how it ends, and it just felt like everything else. The women's War Games match felt very slapped together.
Agreed.
And it felt very like, it's one thing if it's just, hey, we know going into this that we're just going to have to build two different teams and it's just going to be what it is. But then like you almost don't want to try to build up a storyline to it.
Yeah, and it really almost becomes like kind of how Hell in a Cell was at the end of a couple of years ago, where they used to have the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and so it'd be like, we know we got to have these guys in a Hell in a Cell, even if it makes no sense whatsoever, because it's that time of year again. It's like,
it's that time of year, and which I was hoping that this year this is what it was going to be, but maybe next year we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that maybe next year's War Games is Team Bianca versus Team Jade.
Oh, that could be. And I do think they're going to go there at some point. I think the injury to Jade certainly threw a wrench into some of that. In particular now.
Injury, whatever that was.
Yeah, very weird. But I do think also the story there is Jade eventually returns and says, "Well, you just replaced me. Like,
Yeah.
I was gone and you just moved right along. Well, one no skin off your nose." So
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's a good shout. All right. So what is your? I guess now we're up to your number 9.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of Bianca and Jade and their tag team championship, story and everything like that, my number 9 is going to be Bash in Berlin.
Oh, okay.
So I said it wasn't too far away.
No.
So, and kind of like you said, I'm going to kind of rehash some of the same things. Cody versus KO, as we did not know then, we thought it was just going to be a one-off, and now it's going to turn into maybe a little bit more and a little bit more something. So, we'll see what the payoff for that one is. Yeah, the Punk versus Drew, also knowing that they're going to have better matches in the year and that kind of thing, it felt weird. I think personally, all of the mixed tag matches should just be tornado style. It's kind of weird.
I agree.
Where it's, either you have it where you're going to have women being able to wrestle the men and vice versa, or you just have it tornado style because they're going to have to wrestle each other anyway. So like, why not just have them be wrestling at the same time? But that's kind of my side note and that's why most of the time those mixed tag matches to me are kind of not particularly interesting because of that. I feel like that just making them tornado matches could make them a little bit more interesting.
I agree.
More interesting.
Great point.
But aside from that, meh.
Yeah, I feel like there was that is a really good. I also don't like the whole, and I understand it's weird, right? You're not gonna have Damian Priest in there smashing around Liv Morgan, but I do agree that that sounds weird. But I do agree that that it becomes like, you got the tag, let me go jump out of the ring now and get Rhea in. Like it's too much. So I agree with you on that.
You lose all of like the momentum and kind of gravitas of those kinds of moments.
Yeah.
Because like the whole, like in a lot of these tag matches, it's like when the one guy's crawling towards their side and like they have to make the very dramatic tag and then the other person comes in, like full steam ahead and all that stuff. You don't have those in these matches.
Agreed.
Most of the time. But
yeah,
that's a side note on those particular instances.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and yeah, I think that definitely takes you out of it for sure. For me, number 9, I'm going to go, and this is now tough because, and I'll say this, I actually really feel strongly about every one of these events from 9 through 1 here. So I will preface it with that. This is a show I really did enjoy, but it fell on number 9 just because there was something on all the other shows that I really enjoyed and kind of, maybe even have like a bias toward. But number 9 for me, King and Queen of the Ring. I thought this show had a lot to really go into here. Liv Morgan gets the big win over Becky Lynch to start the show here, really, I think, cementing her place as one of the top, as kind of a top, female competitor. I really enjoyed the match with Sammy and Chad Gable. Really enjoyed Gunther and Randy Orton. Cody and Logan Paul, Logan Paul's a huge deal in Saudi Arabia. They love him over there. And so that's why he continues to get title matches over there. But what I will say is that, it really took me out, and I was even trying to figure out the guy's name, and I got it because I honestly had forgotten. Ibrahim Al-Hajjaj gets involved here to help Cody. And listen, I can't sit here. I have criticized folks in the past for saying they didn't know who Bad Bunny was. They didn't know who Jelly Roll was. I did not know who Ibrahim was, and I don't know that I'm supposed to, right? Like, he's a huge star specific to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So great they got him for that. But when you're putting it on for like a premium live event and he's involved in the main event, I do think it takes it took me out of it a little bit. I was like, why is this guy getting involved? And why does Cody need his help to beat Logan Paul?
Right.
Like that.
Only because it's in Saudi Arabia. Like that's the only reason. Yeah. Now I will say I can talk about this now too because this was actually my number 8.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
But yeah, so I think Liv upsetting Becky was probably the moment of the night for this show. Yeah. But everything else, and like you said, it's solid from top to bottom. Like I don't necessarily think that there were any particularly weak points. Although to that point, maybe that weakest moment was kind of having the run-in. But to my memory, like I feel like Logan also had some of that, like,
Okay.
so it was more just evening the odds kind of thing.
Right.
Any match in which Logan Paul loses is going to be a good show for me.
I agree. That's true. Yeah.
As a
No,
matter of
and I
fact,
will
that's probably
say,
one of the reasons why there's a certain PLE coming up that's so high.
Yeah, I agree, and I even have that match when we put together our top 10 for matches. That's on my top 10 matches. That one you're about to, I think the one you're talking about.
Okay.
Sure, because I think it's so good. But yeah, this one here, if Logan has his buddies come in and interfere and has that interference, and it's Jake Paul, I kind of get it. Jake Paul's a pretty big deal, but when he's got like ISO speed, and I get that those guys may be big in the streaming community, fine, but like I don't need to see them, and I definitely don't need to see like his buddies who host the Logan Paul podcast, Impulsive. I don't need them involved. So yeah, I agree.
And that is an instant turnoff for me.
Yeah,
instant.
Exactly.
The second, and when an announcer has to come on, do you know who that is? That's insert random person's YouTube handle.
Right, exactly.
Like when it's not even their real name, and it's like, oh, like I'm like, give me a break.
Right. And it's obviously these guys are getting that opportunity, KSI, ISO Speed, because of Logan Paul. He's getting them this opportunity to kind of do because he's clearly friends with them. And that's fine. And they might be super popular and good on them, but I just don't think it adds anything. Like I understand the appeal of like somebody like a Bad Bunny who's going there and taking this super, super serious and having these great matches and really cares about what he's kind of putting out there. I think is big difference for that than, Logan's pal.
Yeah, you're never gonna make me like Logan Paul. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't care how much less awful he is than his brother or anything like that. Like, you're never gonna make me like him.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right. So now moving in here, for my number 8, I have a show you had mentioned earlier. I went with Elimination Chamber here.
Okay.
I agree with, a couple things with the Elimination Chambers. I think both of them were pretty obvious where they were going. Becky was going to win. Drew was going to win. For me, I remember my wife and I waking up very early in the morning to watch this show. We watched it live, and our daughter woke up with us to watch it and had not really watched WWE for a while. She was a little afraid of a lot of the different pieces to WWE, and this kind of brought her back, this show. I think her seeing Tiffany Stratton for the first time and the crowd just getting so into Tiffany Stratton, I thought was such a really cool moment. They were going nuts for her throughout the entire women's Elimination Chamber, seemingly out of nowhere. So I thought that was really cool. And I think another reason why I have this on the show is that the main event on this show is Rhea Ripley and Nia Jax. And even though that match is not great, I think that it was a really cool moment for Rhea to have that hometown deal there, and I think it was a kind of a showcase as to what could be with Rhea as that top babyface, which we now see. But I think this was the really first time where you got a real taste of what Rhea could look like as a top babyface, and I think she came across really well here, and it was cool to see her get that moment. So that's why I had this one a little higher on my list.
Yeah, and I completely get that. I just wish that it was against somebody other than Nia.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. I guess they didn't really have anyone else they could sacrifice to that piece, but no, I agree.
And having it be, like where we are now in terms of Rhea's storyline and her kind of trying to get back to Liv and all that stuff. Had we been building up to Elimination Chamber in Australia now,
right?
Like it could be phenomenal and it could be an amazing payoff. But not that it wasn't good then, but kind of like it's almost like now, oh man, like if it would have been switched, where that would have been something else, and now we're leading up to it, it would be so cool. But that's kind of.
And I do agree too. I think Grayson Waller should have had a match on this show. I think kind of shoehorning him in there, doing shoeies and stuff like that, just didn't really make much sense.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, we've had other times where those bizarro situations where you have a heel going into a particular situation where they are going to do the face for one reason or another. Usually it's because they're in their hometown or what have you, or they're going up against somebody that the hometown crowd hates even more. kind of thing. So like I feel like there's no reason why. It's easy to explain why he would have been cheered had he been cheered.
Right.
I'm pretty sure he still got a little bit of heat.
He did,
but,
yeah.
Like it would have been okay for the one night to say, hey, you're in Australia, go back and like let's let you have a good match or something. Like,
yeah, no, I agree. They don't seem to do much with him. I'm not sure why, because I do think he's solid in the ring and he's a solid personality. But so go ahead, you're number 7 now.
My number 7 now is one of previously on one of your lists. So number 7 for me is Clash of the Castle.
Okay.
I did put it a little bit higher because of the moments of CM Punk and Drew and a couple of these other kind of things. I think that it felt like Cody and AJ, and now my timeline is playing with me. So this was after Backlash. So this was them running it back in this I Quit match and then leading up to it. And this is where AJ Styles had pulled off the Mark Henry, I'm going to retire. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Moment. It was a weird finish.
It was.
To that match. Because I remember Cody coming up and like he was coming up with the steps, like he was going to guillotine AJ or something like that, and then that's just when AJ just says, "I'm quit. I quit." So
yeah, I hate that too. I don't like that at all. They've done it a couple times.
Considering everything else that happens during the match, it felt like a very weird finish.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like it maybe. Again, had this is kind of dream booking, or this is kind of if we were to play it out differently, had that kind of been maybe the first seed that then led to Cody being a little bit more aggressive, being maybe hinting at a heel turn or something, like kind of getting a little bit edgier in one way, shape, or form, I could have seen that being a good moment and a good ending. Right. Because AJ sees the fear in AJ's eyes when he sees, oh, Cody, like something weird is happening with Cody.
Right.
But there wasn't any payoff to that.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Yeah, he kind of disappeared after that.
Yeah. And I will say, I also feel like though the moment with CM Punk coming in, costing Drew the title and all that stuff, again, it was a great moment. But like you said, if Drew was like, the thing is that, Drew coming in, he is kind of expecting this hometown hero welcome.
Yeah.
But then the fact that CM Punk is cheered more than him, it adds to this feud between the two of them. Agreed. And it did feel like, even though at the time it was kind of awkward, now with the payoff being what it was, it feels like that was actually a very good moment. Which is also one of the reasons why I kind of put it up a little bit higher. Had that been the end of it, or had nothing else really kind of come out of that, I could see putting it a little bit lower. But this is one of those instances where, knowing what we know now, that's why I put it a little bit higher.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there was a lot more to that story with AJ, and I forgot about that AJ fake retirement thing. That was really good. It made sense why they did the I Quit match. So for me, number 7 on my list, great show, really enjoyed it. But I'm gonna go with Money in the Bank, which is a show that. So a couple things here. Number 1, I think probably the couple highlights of this show. Number 1 being that this is the show where John Cena returns, and he's doing his farewell. And I remember he comes out and he has got the time, the end is now. And I'm going, whoa, like he's just going to randomly announce his retirement right here, right now. But instead he announces he is retiring. He is, however, he's just announcing his farewell tour, and it's going to be throughout all of 2025. So no big deal. Like, kind of, okay, we got some time. I hope it goes well. I'm excited to see how it does go. His last few years in ring haven't been the greatest, so I'm interested to see how that goes. But I thought that was like a really good moment here on the show. I loved that Sami Zayn beat Braun Breaker. I know that everyone just assumed Breaker would smash him, but I think like the loss really did a lot in making it so that you don't have to get somebody who's been undefeated for too long. So I like that piece of it. Money in the Bank itself, the men's are flushed here, which I thought was kind of annoying. They give it to Drew, and then he cashes in immediately that same show, and then Punk costs him the match. Maybe I'm a Drew guy, and maybe that's just I don't like seeing Drew McIntyre never get his moment. But I will say also, it just felt like you had such a great opportunity there to have Yeet in the Bank, and we didn't get that. Even Yeet in the Bank on the poster to the show. So I would have loved to have seen that. The women's match here is so good. It is the match of the show, and the ending is just perfect with Chelsea Green going up to get the briefcase, and then Tiffany Stratton lifting, and she goes all the way down off the ladder through the table, crazy bump, and then Tiffany goes and gets her moment in getting the Money in the Bank, and then later on, Chelsea would get her moment getting that first ever United States Championship for the women. So it was a good little taste for that, but I think crowd certainly wanted it, specifically it being in Canada, but it was not to be for that thing. The other thing here is the main event. While I loved seeing finally the Bloodline get a win, it just felt a little strange, like an unnecessary, you'd see this match, the Bloodline versus Cody, Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton, you would see as the main event of like a Madison Square Garden house show. I feel like it is a weird main event. You could totally see that at any house show. Yeah.
Well, I will say that this is actually my number 6 as well.
Oh, perfect. So we're going back and forth.
Yeah, we're kind of I feel like also kind of by process of elimination, it's going to kind of come down to the wire here.
Agreed.
But pretty much, I ranked it almost right around where you were for all of the same reasons, where it like there were some really, really strong moments, and then some like I was hoping that Drew was going to get the belt.
Yeah.
Again, and his, if anything, Drew has had more opportunities in his story to get this, even though he's had it before. The fact that he won it and lost it at Mania within seconds.
Yeah.
Let him have. I feel like he should be the one that has this kind of dominant reign.
Agreed.
He can let him go up against Gunther or something and let him be the one to just take it down, then take over as the reigning guy, and kind of I don't know. But again, he also kind of feels like one of those guys where his chase for it might be more entertaining than his reign as champion.
Agreed.
I hate to say
maybe that's why they keep screwing him.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Because he, and the bigger that chip on his shoulder gets, it's almost like you kind of don't want to see him get it, because the payoff is going to almost not be almost surely not worth it.
Yeah, no, I agree. For me, my number. So was that your number 6?
That was my number 6. Yeah.
So for me, my number 6 ranked way higher. This is really the one outlier on both of our lists. Is going to be Bad Blood. I don't know what it was about this show. I absolutely loved it. I thought the first off, you never ever have. I don't care what match is coming. I don't care what guy is coming out and big surprise is planned. You never have anything follow a Hell in a Cell. It's ridiculous that opened the show. It's way too hard to follow. It's never been done correctly. I think that's the reason why those Hell in a Cell shows were all weird. But I just thought that particular part of the show, that starting things off with that was just not the right call.
Considering it was also not only match of the night, but
top 3 or 4 match of the year. At worst. Yeah. I thought it was really good.
Yeah. I mean, imagine, this is I don't know why. I think it was maybe a Mania or it was some pay-per-view where it was Kane versus Finley to open the show.
Yeah.
I don't remember which one it was. But imagine that turns out to be match of the year for that.
Right.
I know obviously it's not the same, but those openers, I feel like always they should be a good match, and they should be something to get the crowd kind of going and warmed up and everything like that. But to make it this and have that be what it was, yeah.
And then you have Nia Jax come right out afterwards is just terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you supposed to do? And I do think the 3 matches in between, you had Nia, Bayley, Finn versus Damian Priest, and then you had Rhea and Liv. Those matches, I'm sure they were fine, but I don't remember them at all. For me, it's a 2-match show. I am a sucker for the one time only, first time ever, last time ever, super dream team, like we saw here with Roman and Cody. It reminded me of way back Rock and Cena teaming up for that only time at Survivor Series. You knew that, I personally felt like, again, wouldn't have been great to see Solo and Jacob Fatu get the win. Who are we kidding? But I think it would have been interesting to see that, especially because The Rock comes back at the end. He could have cost them the match. And then, the turmoil there, and had it really been like, hey, I'm with this new bloodline group. And even if you're not doing anything with Rock after that, at least you have him something there where he has an impact on the show, as opposed to like him looking them down. And you're ending that Bad Blood show going, oh man, like this is it. This is going to really build toward War Games. And instead, you don't see Rock at all.
Or how about Rock kind of, if Roman loses, Rock coming out, looking at Roman like, you're such a disappointment. What is wrong with you? Like, we're going to have to talk about this kind of thing, But it ends up being nothing. Like,
yeah, no, it ends up being nothing. I did love the build to this as well with Roman and Cody at Georgia Tech Stadium, and Roman giving him that kind of cinematic piece that you're always in my way. Like, I thought that was so well done. And I really thought after that, I was like, man, they could go back and do it for a third straight year if they wanted to at Mania. Roman kind of trying to get it back. Also, Jimmy Uso returns during this main event as well, which was a cool moment there because it had felt like it was, finally somebody coming back against the bloodline and doing that. So I liked this show a lot more than most folks did, but that's why it's way up there at number 6 for my PLE. Also, my birthday weekend definitely plays a role into it as well, the weekend.
A little bit of the nostalgia factor in the circumstances.
It's very, very, very true.
Yeah. So now that we're in the top 5, number 5 for me is the Royal Rumble.
That is I will say it is my number 5 as well.
All right, there we go.
I wonder if we're in lockstep with these 5 here.
It might be. I don't know. I feel like it's possible, but I feel like maybe 1 or 2 might be switched up here. I think Cody winning for the second time. Yeah. Again, like, it was kind of one of those things where it's like, will he actually do it? Like, are they going to do it? Are they going to go something different with this? But I think Bayley getting the win here is great.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many good moments. I think the women's, and this is the show I was talking about that really I had gone back and watched recently and had it on in the background.
Okay.
And I'd seen it live. I went to a viewing party for Royal Rumble, and they had about 5,000 people jammed to this one bar. And I think, it was a lot of fun when it first started, and you saw Hulk Hogan come out and talk about the history of the Royal Rumble in that opening video package. Everyone is so amped, and it's like so exciting. And I think, like, as the night went on, I do think the 2 Rumbles is a lot for one show. So I do think, like, sitting there and watching that, in particular, if you're starting with something as incredible as that Women's Royal Rumble, where you had it kicks off with the return of Naomi, just an incredible moment, knowing everything that she had with leaving with Sasha Banks, walking out, WWE not taking her back right away, her having to build herself back up. Sasha Banks left her like, hey, we have to do this out in unison, walk out together. And then Sasha Banks hightails it off to AEW and leaves Naomi in the cold. And Naomi's got to go to TNA and work her way back up and eventually get back to WWE. So seeing her get that moment, and like her music starts and she comes out, and she's in the ring, and like the lights come on and the crowd just starts like so happy for her, and she just breaks down and cries. Like, I'm getting goosebumps just even talking through it. So good. And then a couple moments later, you have Jordan Grace show up. Pat McAfee, not a clue. You could have me walk out. Pat McAfee would have probably been more familiar with me than he was Jordan Grace. But the incredible moment there, because out of nowhere she comes. She's the current Knockouts champion, and she just won the belt like the week prior from Naomi. So they have this great moment where they embrace, and then they just start beating the crap out of one another. I thought that was cool. You also have the debut of Jade Cargill, who looks like $1 million at the end of this same match. And then it ends with number 30, which ends up being the return of Liv Morgan, which I remember at the time, everyone thought number 30 because they had held it off for so long. And you felt, all right, well, if they didn't have Jade at number 30's got to be someone even bigger. It's got to be, AJ Lee or maybe Sasha Banks. It ends up being Liv Morgan, which at the time might have felt a little disappointing. But you consider now that Liv Morgan has had such a great 2024, it's cool to see that she was one of the final ones there of that Royal Rumble.
Yeah, that is definitely, that's a very good point. At the time it was kind of like like this is the big payoff kind of thing. But it wasn't that it was a big payoff. It was the first step in what it ended up being a great 2024 for Liv Morgan.
Absolutely.
So I think you're right about that. Yeah, for sure.
And then I agree with you 100%. The ending of the men's Rumble is such an amazing moment. I had it on my top 10 moments, but it's since been moved. But Cody going back to back and it coming down to Cody versus Punk. You figured it would be one of those two to win. You can go either way because you figured the plan was for Punk and Rollins at first night of Mania's main event. So you figured they could go with Punk. But obviously he gets hurt, still finishes off the match. And then it's amazing to me that WWE's plan was to pivot off of Cody and Roman after this moment. Cody wins. He looks right at Roman sitting in the presidential suite, and he goes, boom. Like, he points right at him, I want you. And their plan was to take him out of that match and give it to The Rock. Like, they corrected it, but how crazy is that?
I hope, in my hope of hopes, that the whole thing was a swerve. The whole thing was a work. And him, I hope that it was all just a master class in acting and storytelling and all that stuff. Because if not, what a great correction. What a disaster that could have been.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It would have been an all-time disaster to pull him out.
Had they stuck to their guns. And, I think all of this speaks to, had this been a couple of years ago and had that been the plan and Vince still be in charge, I don't think he changes it. I think if that's what he would have wanted it to be, that's what he would have stuck with.
Yeah, they'd have pulled Cody out of the match. Because you do. It's like you had that moment felt like we'd been waiting a year to get this moment. And we finally got it. Like, we're getting we're getting the rematch. He's going to finish the story. So it's perfect. I mean, really good. The reason why the Rumble's not even higher is because the other two matches on this show are just a lot of nothing. I mean, they're right in between the two Rumble matches. They're fine. It's KO and Logan Paul, and then the 4-way for the title. But at the end of the day, it just doesn't work out well because of the fact that it's too much going on with the two Rumbles there to even sink your teeth into anything else. I can tell you, being at that viewing party, it felt like the next hour and a half until the next Rumble, people just walking around, chit-chatting, eating their food, enjoying their times, because people are just kind of buying time till the next Rumble. So I do think they should separate the Rumble into two nights.
I think so as well. And I think that then that means that both, like, the Rumble should end tonight.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Each Rumble should be the main event of the show itself.
Yeah.
And I think it's an important piece, and hopefully they do that. Now my thing is, okay, got it back. Can you just want to make sure I'm good? Okay. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. All right. So now, what is your number 4?
Well, speaking of 2-night shows, my number 4 is WrestleMania Night 1.
Okay. That is not my number 4.
Okay.
But I agree that it was a great show. Certainly want to hear your thoughts on that one.
I think, and again, like, this is it. Now that we're in the top 4 here for me, these, I guess, technically 4 shows, but 3 shows kind of overall. It depends, because if you take Mania as one, I feel like it's unfair.
Yeah.
Because there's so much that goes on. You can't, like, considering all of the things that happen on both nights, like, it would be impossible to say anything beats it.
Agreed.
For both nights. Granted, my list the way it is, it's kind of, it kind of turns out what it was anyway. But for me, like, night 1 always kind of feels like it takes a step back from night 2. Night 2 is always going to be the one that has the bigger storyline, or one that has the bigger moment, or one that has, whatever it is. You're almost always not going to get that on night 1. And so just like, where it feels like earlier, where it's like they're with the Elimination Chamber, they hold something back. There's always something that is just kind of like, it's solid from top to bottom, but we're kind of almost splitting hairs at this point, and there are other ones that just had slightly better either single moments that put it over the top, or a little bit more solid from top to bottom. And not that WrestleMania Night 1 wasn't good, because again, we're in the top 4. All of these are great.
Yeah.
It just felt like, there were singularly good moments, but altogether there were better shows.
Yeah. No, I can see that part. I'll give my thoughts on it here when I get to it. But for me, my number 4 is going to be WWE Backlash France. Incredible show. Highlighted by 2 really strong matches. One of the first WWE proper, as I'm pulling up my notes on it here, WWE proper matches to get a 5-star rating from Dave Meltzer, which almost never happens, and that being the main event, Cody Rhodes against AJ Styles. Never in doubt. Obviously, Cody's not losing the belt 1 month after finishing his story here to AJ Styles, but a great cliff note for AJ's career. If that ends up being, kind of the end of where he is here. Incredible match. Amazing moment when they start where the crowd is doing the whole phenomenal, and he's like taking it all in, and the camera is shaking because of how loud the building is. Like, amazing stuff. And then on top of that, opening match on this show is one of my favorite matches of the entire year. The Bloodline, Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga defeating Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. I was happy. My guy Solo got a big win. But the match itself, too, such an old school throwback to like the Attitude Era. These guys were killing each other out there. It was awesome. Such a great match.
Which is all why I put it as number 3 for me.
Oh, I don't blame you. It's great stuff. And did you enjoy? What was it you liked about that?
The crowd, period. Like, and I think this is one of the, like, we knew for a while that all of like the kind of overseas crowds were always great. European crowds are always phenomenal, but I think this solidified it as this. I think the fans made this so good.
I agree. Yeah.
And I think they made you feel like everything. Yeah. Especially the shaking, the camera shaking and all of that. Like, you could see that, you could just feel it through the camera. And it was almost like the fans could have willed AJ Styles to win that if they wanted to. Like, yeah. It was kind of like, yeah, you didn't think he wasn't going to, but at the same time, maybe. Like any other show, any other pay-per-view, any other city, and you feel like, oh yeah, no, AJ, there's no way.
Agreed.
But this, even for a moment, you felt like he could have pulled it off.
Yeah, and he even has a look in his face where he's trying so hard to be like this nasty big heel, but he even has a look in his face like, whoa. Yeah. And this is also the show that the crowd does the sing along to Randy Orton, to the Voices song, where he comes out and the crowd is singing along, and he's like, holy crap. Yeah. Like, they were dying for a pay-per-view. They finally got one, and they certainly made their presence felt.
And even Jay with his match against Damian Priest early on in his little kind of solo career kind of thing. Yeah, like, again, like, there wasn't anything bad about this show. Like, it was all solid, and this is where, like, the crowd made it that much more. Yeah. And that's why, personally, it goes above WrestleMania Night 1 for me, because, again, it was just so good. Yeah.
All right, for me, number 3 is going to be WrestleMania Night 1. Great show. I think almost an underrated night, because, again, to your point, that Night 2 is always going to be that show. And they try with Night 1. You got the return of The Rock here in ring on this show. I mean, they certainly do try, but it never does feel like the real final show for the event, because you have the next night coming. But I remember this night really thinking maybe I'd just take the plunge and go, and I didn't go. And I remember going, I'm not going to go because obviously Cody and Rollins are going to win. And for me, if I were to go, I'd be so bummed to see The Rock come back and lose. If he were to come back and hit that people's elbow and get the 1, 2, 3, man, I'll feel like the biggest dope for not going. And then lo and behold, Final Boss does get the people's elbow, 1, 2, 3. Michael Cole with the great call of Cody is screwed right after the third pinfall. And it was awesome. And it felt like A, the match was really good, I thought. And then B, I mean, 45 minutes, absolutely ridiculous. No reason it should be that long. But with that being said, I thought they did such a good job in making it feel like we've got now all of Sunday to try to figure out how Cody's going to overcome this now, because it's bloodline rules. They have the numbers game. Also got to give the way this starts. The first hour of this show is amazing. You have Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch come out. Becky Lynch flu game. She's battling the flu. Rhea Ripley has a panic attack before the match because she's got the band, Emotionless in White, there live in their hometown to play her to the ring. This incredible entrance. And then that match happens. Rhea defeats Becky Lynch, really solidifying her spot as like the new top female wrestler. And then that leads right into the great moment of R-Truth and The Miz winning the tag championship. Kind of an underrated type moment for them. It does have a really bad Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso match that just doesn't live up to the hype. But, also Sami Zayn and Gunther. I thought that was a solid. That match, I think, is a little overrated. It's a good match. But the highlight of that match for me, honestly, is when Samantha makes the call. Like, clearly she did not know Sami was going to win the match, because when he does win, like, her voice breaks and she cries as she announces that Sami is the new champion. And I love that. I know people dog on her for that. I think that's just the coolest thing in the world.
I don't think I could say a bad thing about her, aside from the fact that why'd you leave?
Yeah, I wish you were still there. Exactly.
I wish for for one reason in particular, but aside from that, yeah. So my number 2. It was tough. I will say it was tough.
Yeah.
I almost put this as number 1, but my number 2 is going to be SummerSlam.
Yeah, I was the same. Despite being there, and even with the live bias, I still couldn't rank it as high as 1. But it's a great show.
And for honestly almost no other reason than when I started looking at my match list, my top match list, and my top moments, a lot of them come from SummerSlam.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, how could I not put it as anything other than number 2, considering all of those things? Again, anytime where I can get Logan Paul a loss is going to be a great show for me. And for LA Knight to get his U.S. championship, that was a great moment. Bron Breakker becoming Intercontinental champion, that was a great moment. There were so many great matches and great moments and everything like that from here. Dominic being, just when you thought he couldn't be a worse heel and get more heat, he does.
Yeah, like, so great. That really was. It was so well done. And I completely agree. I mean, I was at this show, and for me, so many great moments on the show, and it was a show that I think was amplified for a long time. I've not liked, the one thing about the Triple H era I've not liked is that everyone needs a long title reign. You never get in a title change unless it's WrestleMania. On this show, we've got 4 title changes. It felt like you were just getting everything on this show. Even like the beginning part there, when they have Jelly Roll do his song and they kind of intertwine it with some of the highlights of the show to come. So cool. Like, they did so good with that. But to your point, Liv Morgan and Rhea to start with, Dominic turning on Mommy, and Pat McAfee with, I'd say, the call of his career. I'd never seen this until I was doing it for this project. Never seen this on the PLE version, but him saying, "The bastard screwed his father, and now he screws his mommy." And I'm like, that's such a great call. Bron Breakker getting the title win there. I completely agree. I marked huge for Machine Gun Kelly. I'm a big MGK guy, and had seen him the night before at the Guardians game for MGK Night. So seeing him be involved here, especially because I was like, well, why are they doing Jelly Roll in Cleveland? It should be MGK. And then here he is in Logan's corner. But I think even more so to your point, LA Knight needed that win. I went to the Undertaker show, and Undertaker said, like, look, I like LA Knight, but soon everybody's going to be spelling it LA gone if he doesn't get a win soon. And he needed the win. And not only that, but if you remember, I don't remember what it was, but Logan was making some comments online. Like, Logan was like super hated coming into this show. He was making some like really just dipshitty type comments. So, but he needed to lose, and when he did, it felt like, even if we were in Cleveland, no one cared about Logan being from Cleveland. People were booing him out of the building. So I thought that was well done. I do think the one mistake they made on this show is I think they actually got Priest to a level where he could have been like a top babyface, and it just started right here at SummerSlam, and they flipped the title to Gunther. I think they could have went with Priest a little longer in that spot.
Yeah, I think Damian is kind of one of those people that kind of needs a belt in order to be at the top. You know, he's not one of those guys that can sustain that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, we are starting to see a little bit more of it, but it feels like he needs people around him.
Agreed.
I saw, you know, recently when now that he's kind of sort of in league with the War Raiders, I looked at it and I was like, that's a great fit.
Yeah.
Like the three of those guys together would be an awesome team.
Yeah, they were in the main event of Raw this past week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it was just crazy. And then, I mean, the main event, you know, Cody and Solo, you have this incredible entrance for Cody where he's doing the last entrance with Pharaoh, and Pharaoh's in the back, walking him to the ring for the final time because Pharaoh's getting a little old. He's going to come off the road. Bumps into Arn Anderson, his old mentor, who tells him like, "Hey, you know, fight's coming. Don't worry. I'm gonna, you know, I made some calls. I got you some backup because he has Kevin Owens and Randy returning to help Cody." And then obviously the great moment at the end where Roman makes his big return and hits the biggest ooh-ah in history. I almost fell out of my chair doing it so hard. And nails Solo. Still think Solo should have won the belt, but at the end of the day, fun show. Great show overall. One of the best SummerSlams I think of all time.
I think if Solo gets the belt, even with Roman trying to help Cody, I think that would have been a great moment. I do. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, can you imagine that? Like he tries to help him, especially because Jacob Fatu like goes through the table there, gets a little banged up.
Yeah.
Would have been an awesome moment for sure.
Yeah. But you know, it is what it is at this point.
Yeah. So you're number one, and my
number one, unanimous is WrestleMania Night 2.
Couldn't put it any high. Couldn't go any higher on any show. I think higher than this one. I think just an incredible show. You know, really from top to bottom. I don't think there's a bad part about it.
No, and I think getting Cody to finish the story the way he did, all of the back and forth. The only thing that I would have changed,
I know what you're going to say,
is having, instead of it being Undertaker come out, have it be Stone Cold.
Everyone thought, I remember because I had people over to watch the show, and you know, obviously Cena comes out perfect, right? Comes out, gets the revenge off Solo from the year prior, gets rid of Solo, who cost Cody the last match. And so it's down to, you know, it's down to Cena, and out comes Rock, reliving their rivalry. And when Rock disposes of Cena, remember everyone in the room was like, "Oh my God, it's got to be Stone Cold." I will say this: if Austin is there, I don't know that Cody gets the spotlight as much as it's hard to get the spotlight away from Austin. Austin's the guy, so it would have been. He would have had to leave, which he could have just left, kind of like how Undertaker did.
Yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't have that great gif of Undertaker running through the crowd, huffing and puffing, like that people had. But also, I just feel like it would have been, especially because it's WrestleMania 40, like that's the moment you want is Austin and Rock one more time for sure, 100%.
Yeah, and you know, having another stare down or having something happen, like it would have been. But like you said, it would have taken something away from Cody, and but to that point, if it needs to be Cody's moment, get everybody out. You know, forget Cena, forget Undertaker, forget everybody. Just have nobody help Cody.
Yeah.
Get everybody out and have it just be Cody against the Bloodline. Yeah. And have him try to fight against every single obstacle.
Right, like, he knocks out each one.
Yeah, you know, but then, you know, kind of like it. Aside from that, great, phenomenal, perfect.
Oh, great. Yeah, and you kind of got the idea of what they were doing with the WWE Avengers. Like the Bloodline had become this big force that was just like you weren't able to overcome these horrible odds or anything to that extent. So yeah, it was pretty crazy to that piece. You know, for me, I'd even say because of all of that happens at the end of the show and the amazing moment Cody wins the belt and all the baby faces come hold him up, and you've gotten that now at every big 10-year anniversary of Mania. The first one being WrestleMania 10. Bret Hart wins the title. Owen watches all pissed off, and all the baby faces hold Bret up. 20. Benoit wins it. Eddie comes in. You get the great moment with the two of them embracing. 30. It's Daniel Bryan. WrestleMania. He gets the moment there. So you knew 40 was going to be great. I missed it. I didn't go, but I knew like this is not one that's going to suck, and I'm going to be happy I missed. But I'd even say, aside from that, the first hour of this show, which starts with you've got Meek Mill doing Dreams and Nightmares to that entrance video showing everything from the night one, and then it goes right into the incredible Seth Rollins entrance, the great match with Drew, where Drew does defeat Seth. They have a good match there. Short match, 10 minutes, but a good match. Drew gets his big moment, finally gets the big win, celebrates with his family, and then Punk is sitting there ringside. Obviously, Punk then costs him, and out comes Damian Priest, and it's this moment where Priest cashes in, and he celebrates with all the Judgment Day, who are the biggest heels in the world, but they all babyface. Like, it almost everyone forgets that they're like heels at this moment. So, I thought that was just an incredible. The first hour is very hard to top in terms of like such a good part of the show. And then I thought you had the women's match of the year, Bayley and Io Sky, right before the underrated match there, right before the main event as well.
I think I mean, looking back, I think it was very well received at the time, and I think it kind of has stayed up there as far as one of the solid and one of.
I think LA Knight and AJ have a good match too on this show.
Yeah, and again, there are very good moments throughout it. I wouldn't necessarily say that there's any weakness in it, but it's just that the best moments are some of the best moments of the year. So you can't rank it any lower than number one.
No, I completely agree. Well, those are our rankings there. I thought that was a lot of fun to go through those and rank every single PLE for 2024. As we look ahead to 2025, anything you're looking forward to in particular for WWE?
I am looking forward to see how we start to see the evolution of some of these PLEs that we've talked about, where they're going to go to night 2 or to 2 nights.
Yeah.
I think Royal Rumble definitely makes sense. I feel like SummerSlam, I get it because it is WrestleMania over the summer, but I'd be very curious to see how they're able to kind of fill that time.
I agree. I also wonder, do they have 2 main events that are big enough to have a stadium for each night of SummerSlam?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Which, I mean, it's, the way that we're going, it's possible.
Yeah. No, it definitely is.
But also, I do want to just say honorable mention to all of the NXT PLEs.
Oh, great.
Because, had we included those in these, I feel like if it was just give me a top 10, I feel like some of these shows would be replaced with a couple of NXT shows. I didn't catch all of them, but some of the ones that I caught were really good.
Yeah, I was at Halloween Havoc. Thought that was a great show. Thought the Deadline show that was even after Halloween Havoc was even better. Such a good card there. I completely agree. That's a great show. And I agree with you 100%. I'm interested. I have plans already to go to the Royal Rumble over in Indy. I'm excited to attend that. Certainly with SummerSlam being local, I'll attend both nights of that as well. And so then it starts to go, well, do I need to go to WrestleMania, especially with the dynamic pricing? Maybe not. But at the same time, if I'm going to the other 2, do I try to just do all 4 big fours for the year, make that a theme here on the channel? I don't know. We'll see. But at the same time, it is a lot. It is. And I will say also that part of me is really into the idea of going to Elimination Chamber at Skydome in Toronto, especially because I could drive there too. It's a long drive, but could do it.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah. So it should be a fun year, though. I'm looking forward to it, and glad we were able to go ahead and get our rankings in for the PLEs of the entire year. It's been a fun year, and looking forward. Glad that you and your wife are both ingrained. We have our group chat talking through all the pro wrestling stuff throughout the year, and it's a lot of fun. I know we did a straight WWE, but I will say also that a lot of the we didn't touch on AEW, but I will say AEW pay-per-views are always a lot of fun as well. I can't recommend them enough.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, All right, well, let us know where we got things wrong in the comment section below. Where if you agreed with us, certainly a little pat on the back never hurt as well. And until next time, everyone, certainly wish everyone a happy and a healthy 2025. If you set your New Year's resolutions, be realistic. If you blow them, don't worry. You just pick them right back up where you left off. And we will see you all again real soon in our next video right here on Watch Along Wrestling. Thanks a lot for joining, Steve.